So, I mean, we're getting ready for
Yeah.
the Calgary Flames season. A year ago, we did not have a lot of high expectations. We figured this could be a non-playoff year, and
Yeah.
the goal.
Pick high.
We'll see what
rebuild.
we'll
Sure.
see what the goalie's all about. Should be excited. He should be a full-timer this year. And then they tied for the final spot in the playoffs. Now they did miss, but no one could have expected what came.
96.
So you'd think we've learned from our mistakes, but we sit here and say, I don't think it's going to be a lot this year. I don't expect there's going to be playoffs. The goalie's going to play probably a little
There's
bit
some
more
talk
now.
down at the Dome about 97, not as much in this room.
Oh boy.
Dressing room 97's the term.
Yeah.
One more point. That's all they needed, Drex.
Yes, yeah, I get it, and I can appreciate the optimism. Look, there's a ton of compete in that room. I mean, that was displayed many times last year. I still have the same questions. You guys probably do as well. We wondered about the offense. Where was that going to come from last year? And then it showed up in a few spots that it needed to come from. Nazem Kadri, Jonathan Huberdeau, go down the list. The goaltending, beyond expectation. So can Wolf do that again? And it's probably a redundant question because doesn't it feel like he's going to have to be able to do that again? Or goaltending in and of itself is going to have to be as good. And that's a tall ask. And then you've got the Rasmus Andersson case that, that's not going away anytime soon. And I think that Craig Conroy has managed it well to this point. Let's be honest here. If there was a deal that made sense that was even close to being what you feel you need in return via trade for Rasmus Andersson, Connie would have done that in the offseason. He would have done it, right? And we wouldn't be talking about it. But instead, here we are. And, people are wanting, okay, well, what about the possibility of a contract extension? Can't dismiss it. For me, it's unlikely unless the Calgary Flames overpay in term and in money. And I don't think that they're in the business of doing that. So just if it's a distraction or if it's just pure media content, it's going to be there on Andersson and the Calgary Flames, not just in Calgary, but league-wide until the matter is addressed one way or another.
So if they're looking for a certain price to be met, what is that price? And is there a template for that deal? I always talk about that Lindholm deal because it's looking really nice with Brestevich and Gridden looking especially strong in camp. Like, is it player, prospect, first pick? Like it turns into being quite a haul for Lindholm, who wasn't good for his 2 months in Vancouver.
Yeah. And you're right. All of the above is applicable. And then if there is a contract extension that comes along with Andersson, I think that would be automatic, wouldn't it? If you're a team that's ponying up all of the resources needed to close that deal with the Calgary Flames. So then you get into that territory of sweetener. And I'm also wondering about, go back again now, to Calgary's interest in Keandre Miller, then with the New York Rangers, and how close that got. I think it got reasonably close until I think it was Carolina threatened the notion of an offer sheet. And then the Flames just went, okay, yeah, well, I guess we're out of the mix on that. If Calgary had landed Keandre Miller, we're probably not talking about Rasmus Andersson. Maybe Conroy would have felt like, okay, we're good in that area on defense, so let's maybe acquire some other pieces to help our scoring and all of that. So, Ryan, you mentioned it. I think a little of the above. Prototypically, when we talk about players of this magnitude, it's always an NHL player, it's always a prospect, and it's always a draft pick. And the quality of each, I guess, depends on whether or not the extension goes along with it.
I guess frustrating is the word I'll use, because I was listening to the boys, Hazy B and Noodles and the boys there the other day talking about the Leafs, obviously, and about what they could use. They need some depth. And Treliving wants top six this, and you look around the league, could really use some center help. And it's like, it just feels like Nazem Kadri would be such a good fit for so many teams. He's got that dog in him, as they say. He's got to want to win a cup again because he's tasted it once. He's got a no trade, but I can't imagine if there's got to be a lot of scenarios out there that would feel right for him. And all of a sudden, cap's going up. There's fewer years left. It's 4 years. It's $7 million, but it just feels like there's an opportunity there. But it still feels like a long shot. Is it rightly feel like a long shot to you?
It does, and more from Calgary's standpoint than any of the teams that would have interest. And there'd be many teams with interest, not just the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, you look around, the Vancouver Canucks need some help. The Montreal Canadiens are still in the market. Go around the league. I mean, Doug Armstrong joked about it, but he said 27 teams are essentially looking for the same forward. And really, you know, he says it tongue in cheek, but the same applies when you're looking at a top 3 or a top 4 defenseman, especially a right shot defenseman. All teams need that type of player. But then what does Calgary do? I mean, if you're talking closer to the trade deadline and the season has not gone the way that the Flames are hoping, expecting, okay, then at that point, maybe. But anytime prior to that, then it's going to take, at least in my opinion, a tremendous overpay by the team. And now, if we're being specific to Treliving and the Toronto Maple Leafs, they spent a lot of assets in the last couple of years. They really have. You know, at the trade deadline, acquiring help on defense and some of the other areas. You know, Scott Lawton, who it was announced earlier today, is out week to week with a lower body injury, which he sustained last night against Detroit. They gave up a decent prospect in Grabenkin and then a conditional first-round draft pick. This guy's playing fourth line for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he's a better player than that. And I'm not belittling, you know, what Scott Lawton is capable of. I guess when I'm zeroing in on the Toronto Maple Leafs, Treliving might have to keep his powder dry for a while because his cupboard of assets is running a little thin.
Would it be fair to say the Flames are going to start this season with the goal of 97 points? And then if things don't go like they did last year with the 5-0 start, guys performing better than you would have expected, that they might be ready to sort of, what would be the word, I guess, like flip the switch into like, maybe a light tanking mode. Like maybe don't play Wolf 3 out of 4, play him 2 out of 4. And we'll have the chat with Coleman, who's got 2 years left and near the end of his career. We have the awkward conversation with Nazem. Like, look how old you are. Look at your term. Do you want to win? Like, do you see them sort of having that, like, we hope it's good, but if it's not, we got a plan B?
Yeah. And look, they wouldn't be alone in that area, but that has to be their goal, is trying to duplicate what they accomplished last year and then some. And maybe that's a little too lofty given how we look at the roster and the holes that we expect to see. But their focus going into the season is no different than the majority teams in the league. Look, we're all starting at 0.0 on game 1. So, yeah, you know, we've got, I'm sure that management group has the same sort of offices that every team in the league has, with whiteboards over here. They've got lists of expiring contracts, both RFAs and UFAs. Then they've got their pro scouting list of the players that would be a good fit and the assets that they might want to spend to give up. All of that stuff is just a day-by-day process. But I think in Calgary, no different than any other team, it starts with hope and optimism. And maybe a little expectation, too, from ownership standpoint of why are we talking about taking a step back? Let's see where we're at least around Christmas, and then you start having to have those difficult conversations.
Hey, buddies, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Also, if you could throw in a like and subscribe, it does help us out with what it is we are doing. And check out more at flamesnation.ca.